"Look at her!" The bride sneered into the microphone, her voice echoing through the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. 2 years ago, she thought she was too good for my husband. Now? She's cleaning up my mess. The guests erupted in laughter. Clara kept her head down, her hands trembling as she scrubbed the champagne from the bride's satin shoe. She had no choice. She needed this paycheck more than she needed her dignity. But she didn't know that the doors behind her were about to open. She didn't know that the man walking in wasn't just a guest. He was the man she'd secretly married 3 months ago, a man everyone thought was a broke mechanic. They were wrong, dead wrong. And when he saw his wife on her knees, the wedding wasn't just going to stop, it was going to burn. The invitation had been delivered to Clara's tiny, drafty apartment 3 weeks ago, not as a guest, but as a taunt. It was heavy, cream-coloured cardstock with gold leaf embossing. The wedding of Derek Caldwell and Tiffany Beaumont. Derek was the man who had left Clara at the altar 2 years ago, citing her lack of ambition. Tiffany was the heiress he had left her for, the daughter of a real estate tycoon, a woman who treated people like disposable tissues. Clara had thrown the invitation in the trash, but life has a cruel sense of humour. 2 days later, her grandmother's surgery was rescheduled, and the insurance company denied the claim. The cost was staggering, $15,000 up front. Clara, a librarian by trade, had emptied her savings, sold her car, and taken every odd job she could find. It wasn't enough. Then she saw the job posting for elite event staff at the Plaza. The pay was triple the standard rate because the client was demanding. She didn't realize who the client was until she walked into the service entrance and saw the engagement photos blown up to the size of billboards. "You're late, Miller," the catering manager, a frantic man named Henri, barked. He shoved a tray of crystal flutes into her hands. "The bride requested you specifically for the VIP section. Don't ask me why, just go." Clara froze. Requested specifically. This wasn't a coincidence. This was an ambush. She considered turning around. She thought of her husband, Gabriel. He would tell her to leave. He would tell her they would find another way. But Gabriel was currently in London, looking for work, or so he said. He was a sweet, quiet man she had met at a coffee shop 6 months ago. He fixed cars for a living, his hands always stained with grease. He had no money, but he had a heart of gold. They had eloped at the courthouse with plastic rings, and despite their poverty, Clara had never been happier. But Gabriel couldn't pay for her grandmother's heart surgery. This humiliation could. Clara took a deep breath, adjusted her black vest, and walked into the ballroom. The room was a sensory overload of wealth. White roses covered every surface, cascading from the ceiling like floral waterfalls. A string quartet played softly in the corner. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Clara kept her head down, weaving through the crowd with her tray of champagne. She was almost invisible, a ghost in a uniform. Well, if it isn't the one that got away." The voice was oily and familiar. Clara stiffened. She turned to see Derek Caldwell holding a scotch, surrounded by his groomsmen. He looked heavier than she remembered, his face flushed with alcohol and arrogance. "Hello, Derek," Clara said quietly. "Congratulations." "Congratulations," Derek laughed, nudging his best friend. "Did you hear that? She's congratulating me. That's big of you, Clara, considering you're serving the booze instead of drinking it." "I'm just doing my job," Clara said, her grip tightening on the tray. "Would you like a glass?" "I don't think so," Derek sneered. "I don't take drinks from the help, especially help that used to be my fiancé. Tell me, how does it feel? Knowing Tiffany is wearing a dress that costs more than your entire life?" "It's a beautiful dress," Clara said mechanically. "Excuse me." She tried to step around him, but he blocked her path. "Don't run away, Clara. Tiffany is dying to see you. She actually bet me $500 you wouldn't show up. You just cost me money." "Let me pass, Derek," Clara whispered, her eyes darting around to see if anyone was watching. The guests nearby were pretending not to notice, but their ears were perked. "You know," Derek leaned in, his breath smelling of expensive scotch and decay. "I did you a favor leaving you. You were always so boring, small. You belong in a service uniform. It suits you." Clara bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted iron. "For Grandma," she chanted internally. "For Grandma." "Enjoy your evening," she managed to say, stepping sideways and hurrying toward the other side of the room. She retreated to the kitchen, her heart hammering against her ribs. She leaned against the stainless steel counter, trying to steady her breathing. "Rough table?" Clara looked up. It was Sarah, another server, a college student with kind eyes. "You could say that," Clara murmured. "That's the groom, right?" Sarah whispered. "I heard the rumors. What a dirtbag. Look, if you want to switch sections, I can take the VIP area. You can work the patio." Clara shook her head. "I can't. The manager said the bride requested me. If I switch, I don't get the bonus. And I need that bonus." Sarah looked at her sympathetically. "Okay, but be careful. That bride, she's on a warpath." She yelled at the florist for 5 minutes because the roses were the wrong shade of white. Clara nodded and picked up a fresh tray of hors d'oeuvres. She had survived worse than mean words. She could survive Tiffany Beaumont. She walked back out. The lights had dimmed, and the DJ was announcing the entrance of the happy couple. The doors swung open, and Tiffany and Derek strutted in to thundering applause. Tiffany looked stunning, objectively speaking. Her dress was a custom Vera Wang, encrusted with crystals. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were scanning the room, hunting. They landed on Clara. Tiffany stopped in the middle of the dance floor, grabbed the microphone from the DJ, and silenced the music with a sharp wave of her hand. The room went quiet. "Thank you all for coming," Tiffany chirped, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This is the happiest day of my life. But you know what makes it even better? Knowing that everyone is in their rightful place." She pointed a manicured finger directly at Clara, who was standing near the back wall. "Everyone, look, that's Clara. Derek's ex." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Hundreds of heads turned to look at Clara. She felt the blood drain from her face. "She's working for us tonight," Tiffany announced gleefully. "Isn't that sweet? She wanted to be part of our special day so badly she begged for a job. Let's give her a round of applause for being such a good sport." A few people clapped awkwardly, but most just stared in shock. It was cruel. It was unnecessary. It was Tiffany. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She wanted to drop the tray and run. She wanted to scream. But she stood still, a statue of humiliation, as the laughter started to bubble up from the sycophants in the front row. "Come here, Clara," Tiffany beckoned. "Bring us a toast." Clara didn't move. "I said, come here," Tiffany's voice sharpened. "Or do you want me to call Henry and tell him you're refusing to serve the bride? There goes your paycheck." Clara's legs felt like lead. She walked forward, the tray of champagne shaking slightly in her hands. The walk felt like a mile. Every click of her sensible work shoes on the marble floor sounded like a gunshot. She reached the dance floor. Tiffany and Derek towered over her. "A toast," Tiffany commanded, snatching a glass from the tray. She took a sip, then made a face. "Ugh, it's warm." She poured the champagne onto the floor, right at Clara's feet. "Oops," Tiffany giggled. "Clumsy me. You better clean that up, Clara. We can't have the guests slipping." The room was silent. This was beyond a prank. This was a public execution of dignity. "I'll get a mop," Clara said, her voice trembling. "No, no," Tiffany said, her eyes glinting with malice. "Use your napkin. A mop will take too long. Get down there. Now." Clara looked at Derek. He just smirked and looked away. I can't," Clara whispered. "Then you're fired," Tiffany snapped. "And I'll make sure you don't get a cent for tonight. Is that what you want?" Clara thought of the hospital bill. She thought of her grandmother's pale face. She slowly lowered herself to her knees. The marble floor was cold against Clara's knees. The humiliation burned hot in her cheeks. She pulled the white cloth napkin from her belt and began to dab at the puddle of champagne near Tiffany's expensive heels. The silence in the ballroom was suffocating. Some guests looked away, uncomfortable with the display. Others, the ones who wanted to stay in the Beaumont family's good graces, watched with amused smirks. "Mr. Spot," Tiffany said, kicking a few drops of liquid toward Clara's hand. Clara gritted her teeth. One more hour, she told herself. Just get through the speeches, get the check, and leave. "You know," Tiffany said loudly, addressing the crowd while Clara scrubbed. "I always wondered why Derek wasted 3 years on her. Look at her. She has no spine, no fire. She's a doormat, and doormats are meant to be walked on." Clara finished wiping the floor. She started to stand up, but as she did, Tiffany accidentally bumped into her. It was a calculated move. Tiffany's hip checked Clara's shoulder, sending Clara stumbling backward. She lost her balance, and the tray she had set on a nearby chair went flying. Crash! 5 crystal flutes shattered on the dance floor. The sound was deafening. "Oh my God!" Tiffany shrieked, jumping back dramatically. "She tried to attack me. Did you see that? She threw the glasses at me." "I didn't," Clara gasped, scrambling to her feet. "You bumped me." "Liar," Derek shouted, stepping in to play the protective husband. He grabbed Clara's arm roughly. "I saw you. You're jealous, and you're trying to ruin our wedding." "Let go of me," Clara cried, trying to pull her arm free. Henry, the catering manager, came running over, his face pale. "What is happening? Miss Beaumont, I am so sorry." "Get this trash out of here," Tiffany screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Clara. "She's a psycho. She tried to cut me with glass. I want her arrested." "I did no such thing," Clara pleaded, looking at Henri. "Henri, you know me. I've worked 3 events for you this month. I would never—" "Quiet," Henri snapped. He looked terrified of the Beaumonts. "Clara, you're done. Get your things and get out. You're lucky if they don't press charges." "But my pay," Clara stammered. "The bonus." "Pay?" Derek laughed. "You just broke $500 worth of crystal. You owe us money." "Please," Clara begged, desperation creeping into her voice. "My grandmother. She needs surgery. I did everything you asked. I cleaned the floor. I took the abuse. Please just pay me what I earned." "Get her out of my sight," Tiffany hissed. 2 security guards in ill-fitting suits began to march toward Clara. She looked around the room, searching for a single, sympathetic face. She found none. They were all part of the same cruel world, a world where money bought immunity and poverty was a crime. Clara felt a tear slide down her cheek. She had lost. She was going to leave with nothing, and her grandmother was going to suffer because of it. "Hold on." The voice didn't come from the stage. It came from the main entrance of the ballroom. It wasn't a shout. It was a calm, deep baritone that cut through the noise like a razor blade. It carried an authority that made the security guards pause mid-step. Every head turned toward the double doors. Standing there was a man. He was tall, over 6'2", wearing a tuxedo that fit him so perfectly it looked like a second skin. It wasn't a rental. It was bespoke, midnight blue, with lapels that caught the light. He had dark hair swept back, a strong jawline, and eyes that were currently focused on Derek Caldwell with the intensity of a sniper scope. Clara's breath hitched. She knew that face. She knew the curve of that jaw, the way he stood with his weight on his back foot. It was Gabriel. But it wasn't her Gabriel. Her Gabriel wore oil-stained T-shirts and drove a beat-up Honda Civic. Her Gabriel smiled with his eyes crinkled. This man looked like a predator. "Who the hell are you?" Derek demanded, stepping down from the stage. "This is a private event. Invitation only." Gabriel didn't answer him. He didn't even look at him. He walked straight toward Clara. The crowd parted for him instinctively, sensing a power that far outstripped the grooms. He reached Clara and stopped. His eyes softened instantly as he looked at her tear-stained face and the dirty uniform. He reached out and gently unclasped Derek's hand from her arm. Derek let go as if he'd been burned. "Are you okay?" Gabriel asked softly, his voice for her ears only. "Gabriel," Clara whispered, her mind reeling. "What? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in London, and where did you get those clothes?" "I am in London," Gabriel said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Technically, but I finished my business early." "Who is this clown?" Tiffany screeched from the stage. "Security! Throw them both out! He's probably the getaway driver for this thief." Gabriel turned to face the stage. The smile vanished. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Thief?" Gabriel repeated. He looked at Tiffany with an expression of mild curiosity, as if she were a bug he was about to step on. "You think my wife is a thief?" "Wife?" Derek choked out. He looked from Gabriel to Clara. "You married this loser? A mechanic?" Gabriel chuckled. It was a dark, dry sound. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a black handkerchief. He gently wiped a smudge of dirt from Clara's cheek. "I haven't been entirely honest with you, Clara," Gabriel said, looking down at her. "I told you I fix things, and I do. But I don't just fix cars." He turned back to the crowd, his voice projecting to the back of the room without a microphone. "My name is not just Gabriel," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He tapped the screen once. Suddenly, the massive projection screen behind the bride and groom, which was displaying a slideshow of Tiffany and Derek, flickered. The image changed. It was a live stock market feed. A massive logo appeared on the screen. Sterling Global. The room gasped. Sterling Global was the largest private equity firm in the world. They owned airlines, tech giants, and half of the real estate in New York City. The CEO was a recluse, a man known only as the Wolf of Wall Street's nightmares. "My name," Gabriel said, his voice ringing like a bell, "is Gabriel Sterling, owner of this hotel, owner of the bank that holds the mortgage on your father's company, Tiffany, and the husband of the woman you just forced to kneel." The silence that followed was absolute. Tiffany's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. This time, nobody accused her of attacking anyone. Gabriel took a step toward the stage. "And I believe," he said, his eyes cold as ice, "that you just spilled champagne on my wife's shoes. I think it's time you cleaned it up." A pin drop would have sounded like a cymbal crash in that ballroom. 500 of New York's social elite were frozen, their eyes darting between the man in the midnight blue tuxedo and the woman in the stained server's uniform. Sterling Global. The name was whispered with a mix of reverence and terror in financial circles. Gabriel Sterling was a ghost story told to CEOs to keep them awake at night. He was a man who bought companies before breakfast and dismantled them before lunch, and he was married to the catering staff. Derek was the first to break the paralysis. His ego, inflated by years of unearned privilege, couldn't process the information. "This is bullshit," Derek sputtered, his face turning a dangerous shade of violet. "It's a prank. Who hired this guy? Clara, did you hire an actor? That's pathetic even for you." He strode toward Gabriel, puffing out his chest. "Listen here, pal. I don't know who you think you are, but you're ruining my wedding. Get out before I have you thrown out." Gabriel didn't even blink. He just looked at Derek with profound disappointment, as if looking at a puppy that still hadn't been housebroken. "Mr. Caldwell," Gabriel said, his voice calm and dangerously low. "According to my files, your tech startup is currently operating on a $3 million loan from First Horizon Bank, a bank that I acquired last Tuesday." Derek stopped dead in his tracks. "You missed your last 2 interest payments," Gabriel continued, pulling a piece of lint from his cuff. "I was going to call the loan in next week, but since you've been so inhospitable to my wife, I think I'll call it in tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Have the cash ready, or I take your assets, including that sports car you posted on Instagram this morning." Derek's jaw went slack. The color drained from his face faster than the champagne had drained from the bottle Tiffany held. Gabriel turned his attention back to the stage, dismissing Derek as a non-threat. He looked up at Tiffany, who was still standing there, mouth agape, the microphone dangling uselessly at her side. "I'm waiting, Tiffany," Gabriel said pleasantly. "The floor is sticky." Tiffany looked around wildly for support. Her gaze landed on her father, Robert Beaumont, a red-faced real estate mogul sitting at the head table. He was currently trying to shrink into his chair. "Daddy," Tiffany wailed, stomping her foot. "Do something. He's humiliating me." Robert Beaumont slowly stood up. He was a man used to bullying subcontractors and zoning boards, but facing Gabriel Sterling was like facing a tsunami with an umbrella. "Now see here, Sterling," Robert began, his voice shaking slightly. "This is uncalled for. It's a wedding. Let's not let emotions get out of hand. If my daughter upset your wife, I'm sure we can offer a sincere apology and a generous compensation." "Compensation?" Gabriel laughed. It was a terrifying sound. "Robert, you leveraged 90% of your portfolio to build that monstrosity of a condo tower in Midtown. Who do you think holds the paper on that debt?" Robert Beaumont turned pale grey. He grasped the edge of the table to steady himself. "The ink is barely dry on the refinancing agreement," Gabriel said. "An agreement that has a morality clause. Public embarrassment that damages the reputation of the lender, that's me, is grounds for immediate termination of the deal." Gabriel took a step closer to the stage. "Your daughter just publicly humiliated the wife of the man who owns your financial soul. I'd say that's damaging my reputation." The silence returned, heavier than before. The guests were no longer amused spectators. They were witnesses to a corporate execution. They all had mortgages, business loans, investments. They all wondered suddenly if Gabriel Sterling owned them too. "So, Robert," Gabriel said, checking his watch, "you have 2 choices. Choice A, I foreclose on your Midtown tower tomorrow, bankrupting your family by the weekend. Choice B, your daughter cleans the floor." Robert Beaumont looked at his daughter. He looked at the man who held his life's work in the palm of his hand. There was no choice at all. "Tiffany," Robert said, his voice hoarse, "do as Mr. Sterling says." "Daddy!" Tiffany screamed, horrified. "Are you kidding me? I'm the bride." "Do it!" Robert roared, slamming his fist on the table. "Now!" Tiffany flinched as if slapped. She looked at Derek, who was staring at his shoes, defeated. She looked at the crowd, but the sycophants who had cheered her on 10 minutes ago were now actively looking away, terrified of catching Gabriel's eye. She was alone. Tears of rage and genuine humiliation welled in her eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was the winner. Clara was the loser. Trembling with fury, Tiffany hiked up her $50,000 Vera Wang dress, revealing the expensive satin shoes that were already sticky with champagne. She slowly, agonizingly, lowered herself to her knees. A collective gasp rippled through the room, louder this time. This was history being made in the New York social scene. The Beaumont heiress, brought low on her own wedding day. "The napkin, Tiffany," Gabriel said coldly. "I believe you told my wife a mop would take too long." Tiffany grabbed a linen napkin from a nearby table with shaking hands. She began to dab at the floor, her mascara running down her cheeks in black rivulets. Every scrub was a torture. Every second felt like an hour. Clara watched it all, stunned. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. Her brain was trying to reconcile the grease monkey Gabriel she loved with this titan of industry who commanded billionaires like they were naughty children. When Tiffany had finished, she tried to stand up, but her heavy dress and her shaking legs made her stumble. She fell back onto her hands, right into the wet spot she had just cleaned. Nobody laughed this time. The cruelty of it was too absolute. Gabriel didn't even look at her. He turned his back on the stage and walked over to Clara. He took off his impeccable tuxedo jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders, covering the stained uniform. It smelled of expensive cedarwood and the faint metallic scent she always associated with him. A scent she realized now wasn't car parts, but the scent of cold, hard power. "Come along, Clara," Gabriel said softly, offering her his arm. "We're leaving." "Leaving?" Tiffany shrieked from the floor, finally finding her voice. "You ruined my wedding. You can't just leave." Gabriel stopped. He didn't turn around. He just addressed the room over his shoulder. "Oh, I almost forgot," he said. "This hotel is mine. I don't recall approving a discount for this event, Henri." The catering manager squeaked from the corner. "Sir, Mr. Beaumont insisted." "Cancel it," Gabriel said. "Charge them full price. And Henri, you're fired for allowing my wife to be treated like cattle. Get out!" He looked up at the high, ornate ceiling of the ballroom. "And as for the rest of you," Gabriel announced to the stunned guests, "the plaza is now closed for a private event. My wife and I require the premises. You have 10 minutes to vacate the building. Anyone left after that will be trespassing." Pandemonium broke out. 500 socialites in ball gowns and tuxedos began scrambling for the exits, terrified of crossing the man who had just dismantled the Beaumont empire in under 5 minutes. Gabriel ignored the chaos. He tucked Clara's hand into the crook of his arm. "Let's go home, Mrs. Sterling." They walked out through the service entrance, avoiding the paparazzi that were surely already gathering at the front doors. A sleek, black Maybach was waiting in the alley, its engine purring silently. A driver in a uniform leapt out to open the rear door. Gabriel guided Clara inside. The interior of the car was like a spaceship made of cream leather and polished walnut wood. It was quiet, sealed off from the noise of the city. Clara sat stiffly against the door, pulling Gabriel's massive tuxedo jacket tighter around her. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a crushing wave of confusion and betrayal. Gabriel got in beside her. He didn't try to touch her. He just signaled for the driver to go. As the car pulled away from the plaza, Clara stared out the tinted window. She saw the guests spilling out onto the sidewalk, looking lost and panicked. She saw Derek arguing pointlessly with a security guard. It all seemed miles away. "Clara," Gabriel said gently. She didn't turn. "Don't. We need to talk." "Talk?" Clara whipped her head around, her eyes blazing. "You think we need to talk? Who are you?" "Because the man I married fixes transmissions on Honda Civics and worries about making rent. The man I married doesn't own the Plaza Hotel." "I am the man you married, Clara. I'm Gabriel." "No, you're not," she said, her voice shaking. "You're a liar. For 6 months, every single day you lied to me. Every dinner we ate in that tiny apartment, every time we talked about saving up for a better car, it was all a lie. Was it funny to you? Was I just some little experiment? The poor librarian playing house with the secret billionaire?" Gabriel winced. The pain in her voice hit him harder than Derek's insults ever could. "It wasn't a game, Clara. Never with you." "Then what was it?" she demanded, tears finally spilling over. "Why did you let me worry about money? Why did you let me sell my car? Why did you let me take that job tonight to pay for my grandmother's surgery when you could have bought the entire hospital?" Gabriel sighed, running a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect style. He suddenly looked tired. "Because of my mother," he said quietly. Clara frowned, caught off guard. "What?" "My mother," Gabriel repeated, looking down at his hands. "My father died when I was young. He left us everything. My mother was beautiful, rich, and incredibly naive. After he died, men came out of the woodwork. They courted her, flattered her, told her they loved her." He paused, his jaw tightening. "She married 3 times in 10 years. Every single one of them drained her accounts, cheated on her, and left her broken-hearted when the money got tight. The last one, he convinced her to invest her remaining fortune in a Ponzi scheme he was running. He disappeared overnight. She died 6 months later. The doctors said it was a heart attack, but I know she died of shame. She died feeling stupid and used." He turned to look at Clara, his eyes intense and pleading. "I was 19 when I took over what was left of the company. I rebuilt it from the ground up. I vowed I would never be a victim like she was. I vowed I would never let anyone get close to me for my money." He reached out slowly and covered her hand with his. His palm was warm, but it didn't feel rough like it used to. She realized the grease she used to see under his nails must have been applied makeup. The thought made her sick. "When I met you in that coffee shop," Gabriel said softly, "you didn't look at my watch. You didn't try to figure out what brand of shoes I was wearing. You just talked to me. You were reading Tolstoy, and you had spilled latte down your shirt, and you were the most genuine thing I had seen in 10 years. "So you decided to trick me," Clara whispered. "I decided to test it," he corrected. "I needed to know. I needed to know that if I had nothing, if I was just Gabriel the mechanic, you would still want me. I had to know you loved me, Clara. Not Sterling Global. That's sick, Gabriel. You don't test people you love." "I know," he admitted. "It started as a precaution, and then I fell in love with you. Real love. And the lie got bigger and harder to stop. I loved our life in that apartment. It was the only place I felt normal. I was going to tell you, I swear, I had a whole plan for our anniversary next month." "But you let me go there tonight," she accused. "You knew Tiffany hated me. You knew what she would do." "No," Gabriel said sharply. "I didn't know you took that job. I've been in London closing a deal for the last 4 days. I landed 2 hours ago. My assistant, Sarah, the other server you were talking to." Clara's eyes widened. "Sarah works for you?" "She's my executive assistant. I had her tailing you, just in case. She called me from the kitchen when she saw you there. She told me what Tiffany was doing. I came straight from the airport. I changed in the car." He squeezed her hand. When I walked in those doors and saw you on your knees, Clara, I wanted to burn that building down with them inside. I have never felt rage like that." Clara pulled her hand away. She felt dizzy. The betrayal was so deep, yet the reason behind it was so tragically human. "And my grandmother?" she asked quietly. "Sarah handled it already," Gabriel said, "while we were in the ballroom. The hospital has been paid in full. She's being transferred to a private suite at Mount Sinai. The best heart surgeon in the country is flying in tomorrow morning to perform the procedure." Clara let out a sob of pure relief, covering her face with her hands. The crushing weight that had been sitting on her chest for weeks vanished in an instant. "Thank you," she muffled into her hands. "Don't thank me for that," Gabriel said fiercely. "She's my family too. I should have done it weeks ago. I'm sorry I let it get this far, Clara. I'm so incredibly sorry." The car slowed down and turned onto a private ramp. They descended into an underground garage that looked cleaner than most hospitals. The car stopped, and the driver opened Clara's door. She stepped out, still wearing the oversized tuxedo jacket. They were in the basement of a glass penthouse tower overlooking Central Park, one of the most expensive buildings in the city. "Where are we?" she asked. "Home," Gabriel said. "Our real home." He led her to a private elevator that only had one button, PH. As the elevator rose smoothly, Clara felt like she was ascending into a different atmosphere. She looked at the man standing next to her. This stranger wearing her husband's face. She loved him. She hated him. She was grateful to him. She was terrified of him. The elevator doors opened directly into a massive foyer with marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing the glittering Manhattan skyline. It was breathtakingly beautiful and utterly cold. Gabriel stepped out and turned to her. He looked vulnerable for the first time since she'd seen him at the wedding. "Can you forgive me?" he asked. Clara looked around at the penthouse, the symbol of everything he had hidden from her. She thought about Tiffany on her knees. She thought about her grandmother, safe in a hospital bed. "I don't know," Clara said honestly. "I don't know who you are anymore, Gabriel." She walked past him into the cavernous living room, leaving him standing alone in the foyer of his billion-dollar fortress. The night was far from over. The truth was out, but the trust was shattered. And Clara Miller, the quiet librarian, had to decide if she wanted to be Mrs. Gabriel Sterling. The next morning, Clara woke up in a bed that was larger than her entire living room. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, with a thread count so high they felt like liquid silk. For a split second, she reached out her hand, expecting to feel the lumpy mattress of her studio apartment and the warm, solid presence of Gabriel in his worn-out flannel pajamas. Instead, her hand brushed against cool, empty space. She sat up. The room was bathed in the soft, diffused light of a grey Manhattan morning. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the treetops of Central Park, a view that people killed for. On the bedside table, there was a single white rose and a note on heavy, cream stationery. "I had to go to the office to handle the fallout. Breakfast is prepared. The driver is waiting to take you to the hospital whenever you are ready. I love you. G." Clara stared at the note. The office. Yesterday, the office meant a garage in Queens. Today, it meant a skyscraper on Wall Street. She threw off the covers and walked to the ensuite bathroom. It was a palace of marble and gold with a bathtub the size of a swimming pool. She splashed cold water on her face and looked in the mirror. She looked the same brown eyes, same messy bun, but the woman looking back felt like a stranger. She walked into the walk-in closet, hoping to find her jeans and sweater. Instead, she gasped. The closet was filled. Rows of designer dresses, Chanel, Dior, Gucci, hung perfectly spaced. Shelves were lined with shoes that cost more than a car. There were handbags, jewelry, scarves. Her old clothes were nowhere to be seen. Panic rose in her throat. He had erased her. In one night, he had replaced Clara, the librarian, with Mrs. Sterling, the billionaire's wife. She found a simple white robe and wrapped it tightly around herself, marching out to the living room. A staff of 3 people was waiting. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling," a severe-looking woman in a grey suit said. "I'm Mrs. Higgins, the house manager. Your breakfast is served on the terrace." "Where are my clothes?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. Mr. Sterling felt they were unsuitable for your new position, Mrs. Higgins said smoothly. He had a personal shopper curate this collection for you overnight. Everything is in your size. "I want my jeans," Clara said firmly, "and my sneakers." "I believe they were disposed of, madam." Clara felt a flash of anger, so hot it made her dizzy. Disposed of, like trash, just like Tiffany had treated her. "Get me a phone," Clara demanded. "There is an iPhone 15 Pro Max on the table, already set up with your—" "No, my phone, the one with the cracked screen." Mr. Sterling transferred the data. The old device was recycled. Clara grabbed the new phone. It was sleek, heavy, and cold. She unlocked it. The passcode was their anniversary, of course, and saw the news app open. Headline: Cinderella in the City, the secret life of Gabriel Sterling's mystery wife. There were pictures of her from the wedding, looking terrified in Gabriel's jacket. There were blurry photos of them entering the apartment building. The internet was on fire. People were digging into her past, her grandmother's illness, her job at the library. She felt exposed, naked. "I'm going to the hospital," Clara announced, "and I'm wearing the robe if you don't find me a pair of pants that cost less than $1,000. The drive to Mount Sinai was a nightmare. As soon as the Maybach emerged from the garage, flashes of light blinded her. Paparazzi swarmed the car like locusts, banging on the windows. "Back off!" the driver shouted, pushing through the crowd. Clara shrank back into the leather seat. This wasn't life. This was a zoo. When she arrived at the hospital, security guards escorted her through a private entrance. She was taken to the VIP wing on the top floor. It didn't smell like a hospital. It smelled like lavender and money. She burst into room 402. "Grandma!" Her grandmother, Martha, was sitting up in bed, looking pink-cheeked and rested. She was eating fresh fruit from a crystal bowl. A nurse was adjusting her pillows. "Clara," Martha beamed. "Oh, honey, look at this place. It's like a hotel. And Dr. Arrington came in himself. He's the one from the TV. He said he's doing the surgery this afternoon." Clara rushed over and hugged her frail grandmother, burying her face in the familiar scent of peppermint and old wool. "I was so worried," Clara whispered. "Worried? Why?" Martha pulled back and looked at her. "Gabriel was here this morning. Such a charming boy. He explained everything." Clara froze. "He was here?" "Yes. He told me about the successful investment he made. He said he wanted to surprise you. He held my hand, Clara. He promised me he'd take care of you forever." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "I can die happy, knowing you aren't struggling anymore." "Don't say that," Clara said sharply. "You're going to live." "But Clara," Martha lowered her voice, "why didn't you tell me he was that rich? The nurses are whispering. They say he owns half the city." "I didn't know, Grandma," Clara admitted. "I didn't know." Just then, the door opened. Gabriel walked in. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo today. He was wearing a charcoal grey suit that shouted power. He looked tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Clara," he breathed, "I tried calling you. You threw away my clothes," she said flatly. The room went silent. Martha looked between them, sensing the tension. I thought you'd want new things," Gabriel stammered, looking genuinely confused. "Those clothes were old. You deserve the best." "I deserve to choose," Clara said, standing up. "You don't get to curate me, Gabriel. I am not an acquisition. I am not a company you bought." "I know that," he said, stepping forward. "I was just trying to help. The media is outside. They are analyzing everything. If you walk out there in old clothes, they will tear you apart. They'll call you messy, unworthy. I wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" Clara laughed bitterly. "By turning me into a doll? You think I care what they say?" "I care!" Gabriel snapped, his voice rising. "I care because they are vicious sharks, Clara. I know them. I know how they destroyed my mother. They look for weakness. If you look weak, they will eat you alive." He took a deep breath, composing himself. "I have a meeting with the legal team," he said stiffly. "The Beaumonts are trying to spin the narrative. They're claiming you assaulted Tiffany, and I used illegal leverage to threaten them. I need to handle it." He looked at Martha. "Good luck with the surgery, Martha. I'll be waiting outside." He turned and walked out, leaving a wake of cold air behind him. Clara sat back down, shaking. "He loves you," Martha said quietly. "But he's scared." "He's a billionaire, Grandma." "What does he have to be scared of?" "Losing you," Martha said, "and he thinks money is the only shield he has." 3 days passed. The surgery was a success. Martha was recovering in the luxury suite, but Clara's marriage was on life support. She was staying at the penthouse, but she slept in the guest room. She refused to use the driver, taking the subway to the hospital, despite the paparazzi trailing her. She wore the simplest clothes she could find in the closet, a plain black dress, every day. Gabriel was barely home. He was waging a war. On the 4th day, Clara came home to find the penthouse buzzing with activity. Lawyers in dark suits were scattered around the dining table, stacks of documents everywhere. "Sign here, Mr. Sterling," one lawyer said. Gabriel was standing by the window, a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked like a statue of vengeance. "Clara," he said, acknowledging her entrance. "Come see this." She walked over. He pointed to the TV screen mounted on the wall. It was an entertainment news channel. Tiffany Beaumont was sitting on a couch, crying into a handkerchief. "He ruined my life," Tiffany sobbed on screen. "Clara was always jealous of me. She knew who he was. She planted herself at my wedding to cause a scene, and then he threatened my father. He bankrupted us because I spilled a drink. It's a conspiracy." The host nodded sympathetically. "And now your father's company has filed for Chapter 11? We lost everything," Tiffany wailed. "We're homeless." Clara stared at the screen. It was a lie, but it was a convincing one. "She's good," Clara murmured. "She's dead," Gabriel said. "Not physically, but professionally." He turned to the lawyers. "Release the audio." "Sir," the lawyer warned. "New York is a 2-party consent state. The recording might be inadmissible in court." "I don't care about court," Gabriel said coldly. "I care about the court of public opinion. Release it." "What audio?" Clara asked. Gabriel tapped his phone. A recording played over the room's speakers. It was Tiffany's voice, clear as day. It must have been recorded during the wedding, perhaps from a security camera or a microphone near the stage. "I always wondered why Derek wasted 3 years on her. Look at her. She has no spine. Doormats are meant to be walked on. Get down there. Now." Then, another clip. Tiffany talking to Derek backstage before the entrance, caught on a hot mic. "I'm going to make her cry tonight. I bet you I can make her quit before the cake cutting. Watch me break her." "Release it," Gabriel repeated, "and release the foreclosure documents showing Robert Beaumont has been embezzling from his own company for 5 years. Send the evidence to the district attorney." "Gabriel," Clara said, horrified, "you're sending her father to prison." "He broke the law, Clara. I'm just providing the flashlight." "But they'll be destroyed." "They tried to destroy you." Gabriel turned to her, his eyes blazing. "I told you, I don't fix cars anymore. I remove obstacles." The lawyers nodded and began typing furiously. "There's one more thing," Gabriel said, his voice softening slightly. "I have a gift for you. A real one." He slid a folder across the marble table. Clara opened it. It was a deed. Property. The New York Public Library branch, 42nd Street Annex. Owner, the Clara Miller Foundation. "I bought the building," Gabriel explained. "The city was threatening to cut funding. I bought it. I endowed it with $50 million. You don't have to be a librarian anymore, Clara. You can be the president of the foundation. You can run the whole thing. You never have to take orders from anyone again." Clara stared at the paper. It was a magnificent gesture. It was generous. It was thoughtful. And it was the final straw. She closed the folder. "No," she whispered. Gabriel blinked. "What?" "I loved that job," Clara said, her voice shaking. "I loved shelving the books. I loved helping the kids find stories. I didn't want to own the library, Gabriel. I just wanted to work there." "But now you can make it better." "No," Clara shouted. "Now I'm the boss's wife. You bought my workplace. You took the one thing that was mine, my career, my identity, and you put your name on it. You're controlling everything. My clothes, my phone, my job, my enemies. You're suffocating me." "I am giving you the world," Gabriel roared, slamming his hand on the window. The glass vibrated. "Why can't you see that? I am doing this for you." "You're doing it for yourself," Clara yelled back, "to prove you're not that little boy whose mother got swindled. You're using me to prove you're powerful. But I didn't fall in love with Gabriel Sterling, the billionaire. I fell in love with Gabriel the mechanic, and he's gone." She backed away. "I can't do this. I can't live in this museum. I can't be your doll." "Clara, stop." Gabriel's anger vanished, replaced by panic. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to stay with my friend Sarah. The other Sarah. The one who doesn't work for you. Don't follow me. Don't send a car. Don't buy her apartment building." She grabbed her purse. "Clara, please." Gabriel stepped toward her, reaching out. "I don't know how to do this any other way. Teach me. Don't leave." "I can't teach you," Clara said sadly, opening the elevator door. "You have to figure out if you're capable of being just a man without the money. Because right now, the money is all I see." The doors closed, severing the connection. 2 weeks later, Clara was living on a futon in her friend Julie's apartment in Brooklyn. It was cramped, it smelled like cat food, and the radiator clanked all night. She loved it. She had gotten a job at a small independent bookstore in Park Slope under her maiden name. The paparazzi had lost interest after the Beaumont scandal blew over. Tiffany had fled to Europe, and her father was indeed indicted. The news cycle moved fast. Clara was yesterday's news. She missed him, every hour of every day. She missed the way he drank his coffee. She missed his laugh. But she couldn't go back to the cage. It was a Tuesday night, raining hard. Clara was closing up the bookstore, locking the front door, when she saw a car parked across the street. It wasn't a Maybach. It was a 2014 Honda Civic. Grey, dented bumper. Clara's heart stopped. The driver's side door opened. Gabriel stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing faded jeans and a black t-shirt. He had grease on his cheek, real grease. His hair was wet from the rain, hanging in his face. He walked across the street, stopping a few feet from her. He looked terrified. "Hi," he said. "Hi," Clara whispered. "I fixed the alternator," he said, gesturing to the car, "and the timing belt. Did it myself. Took me 6 hours because I'm a little out of practice." Clara couldn't help a small smile. "You look like a mess." "I am a mess," Gabriel said earnestly. "I'm a complete disaster without you." He reached into his pocket. Clara braced herself for a diamond ring, a key to a mansion, a deed to an island. He pulled out a library card. It was a standard New York public library card. "I returned the building," he said. "I donated the money to the city, anonymous grant, with the stipulation that they can't fire the current staff. But I gave up ownership. It's not mine. It's yours to go back to if you want." Clara's breath hitched. "And the penthouse?" she asked. "Listed. I hate it there. It's too quiet." He took a step closer, the rain soaking him. "I rented a brownstone in Brooklyn. It's got a garage. I want to fix up old cars on the weekends. For real this time." He looked at her, water dripping from his eyelashes. "Clara, I have billions of dollars. I can't change that. I can't give it all away. I have thousands of employees depending on me. But I promise you, I swear to you, when I come home through that door, I will leave the CEO outside. I will just be your husband. I will listen. I won't try to fix you. I will just love you." He held out his hand, his dirty, grease-stained, trembling hand. "Please," he whispered. "Let me take you to dinner. Burger King, my treat. I have a coupon." Clara looked at him. She saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of a man who had finally found something money couldn't buy, and realized he had almost thrown it away. She saw the mechanic she had fallen in love with. Clara stepped out from the awning of the bookstore and into the rain. She reached out and took his hand. It was warm. "I prefer Wendy's," she said. Gabriel let out a laugh that sounded like a sob. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground, burying his face in her neck. "Wendy's it is," he murmured into her hair. "God, I love you." They kissed in the rain, ignoring the honking taxis and the curious onlookers. Epilogue, 6 months later. The wedding was small. It was held in the backyard of a Brooklyn brownstone. There were no press, no security guards, and no crystal flutes. Martha, fully recovered, sat in the front row, wiping her eyes. Sarah, the server, was the maid of honor. Clara wore a simple white dress she had bought off the rack. Gabriel wore a suit, but he had forgotten to shave perfectly, and his tie was a little crooked. "Aye, Gabriel," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Take you, Clara, to be my wife, for richer or for poorer. And I promise, even if I'm the richest man in the world, I will always be the poor fool who got lucky enough to meet you." "Aye, Clara," she replied, squeezing his hands. "Take you, Gabriel, to be my husband. I promise to keep you grounded, and I promise to remind you that you are worth more than your bank account." As they kissed, a single camera flashed. It wasn't a paparazzi. It was just Julie, taking a picture for the fridge. The billionaire wolf of Wall Street was gone. In his place was just a man who had finally learned the value of the only thing that matters. And somewhere in Europe, Tiffany Beaumont was scrubbing tables at a cafe, having finally learned the value of $1. Life, Clara thought, as her husband spun her around the grass, really did have a funny sense of humor. Video ends with Clara and Gabriel laughing in the backyard. And that is how the quiet woman who scrubbed the floor became the queen of the city. Not by marrying a billionaire, but by teaching him how to be human. It's a reminder that dignity isn't something you buy, it's something you carry. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you do if you found out your partner was a secret billionaire? Forgive them or leave them? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching.